All right, here we are at lesson 6. This is on page 10 of the book. And we're now talking about notating not how high or low something is, but how long it lasts. So this is going to be a rhythmic value, a sort of a time value for notation. And the first thing that they talk about is basically how to draw a note on the staff. And I will point out that when I draw notes, definitely it's clearly in the space or clearly on the line. We don't want to make the note too big so that it's kind of ambiguous. Like, what is that? Is that in the space, or is that, I don't know exactly what it's supposed to be. So you have to be careful with your note size. And the other thing that I do, I think kind of unconsciously now, is I kind of draw my notes with just a little bit of a tilt. So they're kind of on an axis where they're sort of tilting. And the reason that I do that is precisely because when we start adding stems to the notes, it gives us a place for these stems to attach that kind of makes sense. So look at the top of page 10. The first note value that we come across is the whole note. And the whole note is basically just that circle. It's just a donut. That's it. And what we're going to show you is what the note values look like, and then I'm going to attempt to show you how they relate to each other in terms of time. So the next type of note is a half note. So simple math, we have whole and we have half. So it takes two of these to equal the length of one of these. And you got to consider that when you play a whole note, it's suspending or ringing, or it lasts for the whole time, right? And when you play a half note, it's ringing, and then we stop, and then we play and we stop. So the whole note is literally two halves put together without stopping. The next type of note is a quarter note. So mathematically, that's not a big deal. We understand whole, half, quarter. But you can see now there's a difference in the way I'm drawing the note because I'm filling it in. The note head is filled in, whereas these are both open circles, if you will. So we have donut with a handle, not a donut, I don't know, it's a dot with a stick. Something else that they point out is that the length of the stem is usually, we would say it's about an octave. What does that mean? Well, it's like a range. It's like how far in terms of note value. So I don't need to explain it. It's about that long. If we were in the treble clef, this note would be a C. And if we went down 8 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, this note would also be a C, right? It's middle C. So the distance from here to here, because it's 8 notes apart, we call it an octave. We're going to get to that later in the class, but the reason I bring it up is because the stem, you see, is about an octave in length. So that's how long to make the stem. If it's too short, then it starts to look like a comma or something. I don't know. It doesn't look good. So there are some exercises on the bottom of page 10 where you get to practice understanding these kind of relative note values between whole, half, and quarter. So check that out. I'm going to skip page 11 for a minute. And let's go to page 12. Okay, so I'll go through this quick. You can watch the video as many times as you want to. What we're talking about here is the time signature. And the time signature is basically a way to organize rhythm or time when we notate music. We have 2 numbers, an upper number and a lower number. Each one is going to tell us something specific. So let's talk about the upper number first. Okay, so when we talk about rhythm in music, and we haven't really done kind of an overview, I guess. Maybe I'll have to go back and record that video. But when we talk about rhythm in music, when we play something, anything, over and over again, it establishes a beat. And a beat is basically a regular recurring sound. So I'm trying to be even when I play, when I clap my hands together. And I'm doing it at an interval that's the same. And so we call those beats or pulses. When we notate this in music, we want to know how many of those beats are we going to put inside of one unit of notation, okay? So the previous page, page 11, kind of talks about bar lines, but I'm going to come back to that. So the top number is how many beats. So in this case, it means 4 beats. So we know it's 4 of something, 4 beats, 4 sounds. I'm just going to put 4 marks on my little whiteboard. Okay, cool. The bottom number tells us something different. And what it's trying to tell us is what kind of note. And by what kind of note, we mean what note value, the stuff we did in the last video. Is it a whole note? Is it a half note? Is it a quarter note? There's even such thing as an eighth note or a 16th note. So since the bottom number is a 4, you can kind of pull this over here, make a fraction, and understand that it's talking about a quarter note. So if there's a 4 on the bottom of the time signature, the kind of note that gets 1 beat is a quarter. The kind of note or the type of note that gets 1 beat or 1 count is a quarter note. So if you put these two things together, that means that we will have 4, right? How many? Quarter notes. That's the one with the stem. And when we count them, this quarter note is going to get 1 count. So we would say 1, 2, 3, 4. And in this system, I'll put in a bar line. If I were to write half notes on the staff, because the quarter note gets 1 count, half notes are going to get 2 counts each, right? Because they're twice as long as a quarter. So we would count this 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I play it on the piano, I think I can play a key over here. The quarter notes sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Half note, 2, 3, 4. So they sustain much longer. And you could keep going, right? You could put a whole note, and that's going to get all 4 counts. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, off. So the note values are relative to each other, and the time signature basically tells us how many things we can put in each unit of notation, each bar, each measure. And the bottom number is telling us what kind of note value is going to get 1 count. I hope that makes some sense. I will do rests really quick because they're really the same as notes when we talk about notating rhythm. So if we have a 4/4 time signature, 4 beats in a measure, quarter note gets 1 beat. That means we could put 4 quarters in a measure like that. But it also means we could put 4 quarter note rests. So the thing about sound, particularly music, is that we depend on making a sound and also making no sound. So silence is an important part of making music. So the notation for a quarter note rest looks like this. And just like a quarter note, I can put 4 of those inside of one measure. And we have rests that are 2 beats long, half rests. And we have rests that are whole rests, just like a whole note. So we have quarter rests, half rests, whole rests. Do pay attention to the line that these sit on. So the half rest is sitting on the middle line on the top. Sometimes I tell people that half rest looks like a hat. Helps them remember. And the whole rest is hanging from that fourth line from the bottom, right? So if I had a little stick figure person here and they were walking along the staff, they would fall into the hole, just like that. Sorry, it's my junior high school explanation of a whole rest, but it's very effective, I think. So now you can do the exercises on the bottom of page 13. And remember that whether it's a note or a rest, whole, half, and quarter are all equivalent time scales in music. So whether you're counting notes or rests, this is still just 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? All right, give it a go. Come at me with your questions. We'll see if we can help you figure this thing out. Cheers.